Welcome into Northside Territory, Foul Territory Network's Cubs podcast. I'm Sahadev Sharma with my partner, Patrick Mooney. We are your Cubs beat writers over at The Athletic. Patrick, before we kick off the show, I wanted to read an email. It was a really kind email from our friend John Rose. He bought a Northside Territory t-shirt. He wrote in this message, he wants to meet for drinks. He says, let's meet for drinks, my treat. I've been following you guys since CSN for Patrick and Sahadev tweeting from Bruce Levine's account. That's a long time ago. I literally
way
forgot.
back.
Yeah, I forgot until I saw that. I had forgotten that I was tweeting from Bruce's account way back in the day. I believe it was like ESPN Cubs, ESPN Chicago Cubs, something like that was the Twitter handle. Bruce was not tweeting back then, so it would just be the somebody from the company social media wise tweeting stuff out. So they gave me access, and I'd put SS at the end of my tweets so people knew it was me. That is like, it literally was out of my mind. I didn't remember that I was doing that until I saw that. So that's awesome, John. I appreciate you. We both really appreciate you following for that long, supporting us, and go into the shop. It's at northsideterritoryshop.com. You can get whatever, the ton of gear there, like bags, notebooks, t-shirts, all sorts of stuff. It's pretty new. You can if you're watching on YouTube right now, you can scan that and get right to the site, northsideterritoryshop.com. Appreciate all of you listening. We've had a lot of people listening lately, and really appreciate the support. We hope it continues on. Obviously, the trade deadline is a active time, so we know you're hungry for information. We are going to do our best to give it to you in this episode. Patrick, it's a trade deadline episode yet again. I mean, that's the hot thing to talk about. We're not going to stop. It was a difficult week, I'd say. I liked the weekend. I thought the Cubs looked really good over the weekend. This week against Kansas City, that was not their best. I don't know if it was their worst series. I don't know. I don't want to, be hyperbolic. It wasn't a good series. They just didn't. The pitching is under the microscope now. We've been talking about it for over a month. That is the number one goal of the trade deadline, and I think it was just emphasized with the performance against a bad offensive team that put up Matthew Boyd, an absolute stud, shut them out, and then the Royals still scored 20 runs in that series. That's it just really puts a spotlight on what the main obvious need for this team is.
Yeah, and it was perfect timing too for our purposes to have Seth Lugo on the mound on was it 92 degrees at first pitch? It was just gross. Great day to hit. And Lugo well before this was on the Cubs radar as like an interesting guy to plug into rotation. I think StatCast lists him as having 10 pitches. I think it's very impressive how he took control of his career and said, I want to be a starter, and kind of like did not just kind of settle for a role. Like, how many guys in spring training, of course I want to be a starter. Like, that's like one of the oldest spring training stories. But this guy over the years just proved himself in New York. He went to San Diego. He's been a big part of things in Kansas City. And that was, he was getting asked about it. Teammates were getting asked about it in the Wrigley visiting clubhouse afterwards. And I think he's kind of a good name here as we get into, I think we have 22 names. That the Cubs are on every single player who may get moved in the next week here, but pitching just has to be the focus. There's been too many sort of bullpen games. Even that last series before the break, they won a series at Yankee Stadium. But just, what was it, like 11-0, 11-1. And then you have Shota, you have Boyd pitching the rest of the weekend, and all of a sudden looks a lot better. And you just need to plug in at least one legit, accomplished, experienced starter here to kind of get you through these next couple months.
Yeah, I don't want to be too hard on Colin Ray. That's a tough day.
No, yeah.
He's done really well. That's like, but he has his limitations, and a day like that at Wrigley is just not a good day for Colin Ray to be pitching. He is going like he has to be perfect, and he wasn't. He made mistakes to the wrong players. There are just players on that Royals team that you kind of, especially when Bobby Witt isn't playing, you can't make a mistake to Pasquantino. He will crush mistakes, and he did. But Colin Ray has, really admirable what he's done so far this season. He's kept the team in games. He's helped them win games often enough. Wednesday was not a good day for him to be out there. I think Seth Lugo's probably, if I were to rank the rentals, and I know Lugo's kind of a weird situation because he has that player option. I don't think any team that's pursuing him is looking at him as anything but a rental.
Yeah.
Sure, the Royals will try and market him as not a rental or try to get more value for him than a rental. I don't think that's realistic. He's at the top of my list if you're talking about the rentals. It's not a great list when it comes to rentals. His teammate is not a rental. I'm not sure if he's available, but he'd be a huge ad in Chris Bubich. We didn't see him this week against the Cubs, but that's a guy that you add him, and there's a few names on this list that we're going to go through. You add him, you're getting impact now, and then you save yourself for spending in the offseason. I believe, does he have 1 or 2 years after this? We've been doing research on so many names that I lose track of who has. He has 1 year. He has 1 year after this, 2026. But that's obviously a really good season. He's got the peripherals to back it up. Solid ground ball rate. It does everything that you kind of want, and then you put him in front of the Cubs defense, and he's even better. I like Bubich. I think he'd be great. I'd be surprised if he can be pried away. And I also think the Royals are probably still on the fence. I don't like. They want to win. They want to compete. And this week probably helped them kind of go. I don't think they're full on in either direction just yet, but probably nudge them in the soft buy at least direction. So not ideal for the Cubs. Who knows what happens this weekend? I think this weekend is big for a lot of teams, and we'll get to some of them.
Yeah, you kind of finished my thought there of just the Royals are not kind of the Royals you thought of maybe when I'm trying to think of what age range that would be, but obviously they won a World Series title 10 years ago, went through a down period, and they've built kind of this interesting sort of team. They don't just like concede. I mean, clearly they're not as good as like or consistent as the Brewers have been, but they're also not like the Pirates. And listening to some of the answers yesterday in that post-game clubhouse, you get the sense of, well, look what the Tigers did last year. I mean, the Royals were a playoff team last year. They have this spectacular player as a centerpiece in Bobby Witt Jr. They have a lot of good pitching. I believe Ken Rosenthal, our colleague, wrote that Lugo is someone who the Royals would like to have a good relationship with going forward. You know, they expect to compete next year. He acknowledged that he's had conversations with the front office. So if I'm the Cubs, I'm maybe circling another team, and they've been doing it for a long time here in the Miami Marlins.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Marlins, we could look in a bunch of different ways. There's one name that's just been out there since the winter, really. They weren't going to trade him in the winter because they needed him to get healthy. But Sandy Alcantara is the name everyone talks about. I think both of us have heard enough recently that I think he had a good start recently. There wasn't a lot of good swing and miss in that start. From my personal opinion and everything that I've heard around the league, he just isn't that attractive to teams looking to win now. I don't think people believe that he's a bad pitcher or that he can't get back on track. I think what we're hearing is if you're competing now, adding Sandy Alcantara to the mix isn't something that is an obvious upgrade to your rotation. That maybe it's not like I don't want to call it a project because he's had success, but there's work to be done to get him back on track, and I don't think it's a quick fix.
I think project, you actually probably could use that with all due respect. Once you say with all due respect, you can say whatever you want. As Joe Madden likes to quote, what was that Will Ferrell movie, whatever it was. But I just think if you're a contending team, you only have so many trade chips. Your budget only goes so far. There's only so many roster spots or rotation spots available, and I think to place that heavy of a bet on a guy who did not throw a pitch all of last year and who has struggled for most of this year and is coming from a very unstable organization, it doesn't line up in my mind. I think there's another name though in that rotation, and you can go all the way back to Luzardo talks this past winter. There's a lot of familiarity there, and I think there's a kind of under club control pitcher who may make the most sense. What do you think, Sahadev?
Yeah, I mean, Edward Cabrera has been really good lately. I think he's striking guys out. He's not walking as many guys of late. He's got the type of stuff that's kind of tantalizing. I think you talk about under control pitchers who haven't fully reached their potential. This is the type of guy I think the Cubs would love to get their hands on. I think a few teams would love to get their hands on, frankly. Yeah. But we're talking about the Cubs here, and I think we kind of know that they've been talking about him along with Luzardo and other Marlins pitchers since November. They've been digging in on this guy. I think they like him. I think they like him a lot. I think if there's an under control pitcher that's realistically available, this may be, or not only realistically available, but like eminently, like very available, right? Like the Marlins are trading guys and they're willing to move pretty much anyone. I think this may be the guy that's at the top of the list for the Cubs. I think they really would like to get him. I think he's trending in the right direction. I think there are little tweaks that the Cubs can make or adjustments that the Cubs could make that could, get him to an even higher level. I don't know. Well, he's got the type of stuff that makes you think, oh yeah, this is a top 3 in a rotation. It hasn't fully all clicked yet, but I think that's exactly the kind of guy you want to get. That's how their thinking is. They want to acquire the guy before he becomes a stud. But it's not going to be cheap. I'm not saying it's a steal, but you'd get him for nothing. But that's the type of deal you could see some big prospects being moved, and then it almost immediately paying off and saying, wow, I didn't know how good this guy was.
No doubt. And when you look at the landscape, we've talked about this before, but people in the industry are talking about it as well. Like there's no CC Sabathia walking through that door. Randy Johnson, that type of like no doubt slam dunk ace is sort of disappearing from the game anyways, but it's not really an available option for any team at this point. So I think you have to sort of be open-minded here. And, Sandy Alcantara is a much better headline, no doubt. And I get why people are really interested in him. Like we just wrote about him. Like we're going to keep writing about him. But Edward Cabrera might be better positioned to deliver the real impact you're looking for the rest of the way.
Yeah, I think he slots into the playoff rotation immediately. Yeah. If you acquire him, and then there's a chance that he could be even better than what you think. Let's take a quick break and talk about another team that's kind of on the fence. And we'll see if they're selling or not.
You know about the best place to buy, sell, trade, or look for that special card in your world. It's called Arena Club, and Eric Kratz just went through a little slab pack experience, and you went big. You went for the Ruby pack.
I love it. I love clicking on the Ruby pack and knowing that I'm going to open something that is going to be epic. I got a Cal Ripken Jr. autographed 1/42. I'm keeping it right now, but I would love to have it in my hand, so I might even have them send it to me. Already graded, everything taken care of for me.
That's right. You want to hang it up and stare at it all day, go for it. But if you're in there to get something else or to sell it away, you can do that. They've got the buyback program, or you can put it on the marketplace yourself. Tons of options. This is where the best cards live. It's arenaclub.com/foul and use the code foul for 20% off your first slab pack, or if you'd like to purchase a card, 20% off your first card purchase. Again, arenaclub.com/FOUL. Use code FOUL.
This time of year, Patrick, is fascinating in the sense that what teams decide could flip in the matter of days. The Arizona Diamondbacks swept St. Louis, and then they were swept. I'm not even sure who swept them. I just know they were swept.
Houston, right?
Houston, that's right. And then they were swept by Houston. It completely changes the thinking. Like this is the team. I believe they're 5.5 out now of the wild card.
They're 3 under, 5.5 back. Playing Pittsburgh this weekend, so theoretically it could flip again. But they're really, giving themselves like almost no margin for error here.
Yeah, This is a team that I think you kind of have to assume the way they're set up. It's a smart front office. It's an opportunistic front office. It's a front office that wants to compete, absolutely, an ownership group that wants to compete. But I think they're also realistic, and they're not going to be aggressive buyers. But also, they have 3 obvious players they could sell who are on expiring deals. 2 of them are pitchers. Zach Gallen is the type of guy that I would. You could compare him to Sandy Alcantara in the sense like this is a guy people were talking about as an ace in the past, and he's just not there right now. I feel like it's a different situation though. There's not you're not talking about like an innings limit because he's coming off a major injury. It doesn't feel as off, although the stuff may be slightly deteriorating. There are questions, but it's still an intriguing guy to pursue, and certainly a guy that is as competitive as anyone and would be really nice to add to a playoff rotation.
Yeah, I think Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, I'm sure teams have preferences. There are pros and cons for each one. I think beggars also can be choosers sometimes. Like there's I think either one of those guys you could plug in. Gallen has that like game 1 starter potential. He's had that profile or pedigree to an extent earlier in his career. Not sure he's there right now, but again, this is a guy, maybe he just shows up. He's a guy who goes off a feel. Something clicks and he just like gets in a groove at the right time. I don't think that's unreasonable. I get that, some of these rental pitchers the Cubs might not be super high on, but also what they're doing is not super sustainable. And you kind of have to, make compromises here or there. And I think we talked about this in the context of Eugenio Suarez. Like the Cubs and Diamondbacks have, longstanding connections. They're going to be in that mix, whatever the Diamondbacks ultimately decide to do. And I'm with you. Like they're kind of an unusual operation in that they don't tank. But they've tried to legitimately compete with the Dodgers, which is very admirable, but also sometimes the season tells you what to do and that you can't keep clinging to that. You have to salvage something, even if you still, leave a little narrow room to try and get back in the race so you don't totally, crater your team. But that point is very much fast approaching for them.
Yeah, I like Kelly. He's kind of like a metronome pitcher.
Yeah.
Like he's not like going to dominate, look like an ace or anything like that, but he could make a playoff start for you, and you feel comfortable with him doing that. These guys are the aces, Patrick, that we're going to talk about. I don't foresee any of them being moved, but there's a chance. There's that small possibility. Some more than others. For me, the best one is Mackenzie Gore. If somehow you can pry Mackenzie Gore, you pay the price, because now you've added an ace to your rotation. He's under control through 2027. He's taking that step forward to go from good pitcher to, he's pitching like a top 10 pitcher in the game. Now you have, to be able to push down Boyd and Shota Imanaga, if you're capable of doing that by acquiring someone that can do that's now you're just like the debate. It's not just they have the best record in the league. It's like, let's talk about them as the best team in baseball. That's very easy discussion to have, and it's a good debate to have. You add someone like that, it's going to cost a ton. I just don't think the Nationals are going to give him up right now. They're so in flux. They're blown away. Maybe they do it, but it's hard to envision. That's a guy that I don't see being pried away. The Twins sound like they're selling. Joe Ryan would be a hell of a get. Also, maybe hard to get, but I do believe the Cubs have talked about him. There's been discussions about him. He'd also fit in the front of the rotation like that. That's a guy that I would just keep an eye on, because if the Twins decide like, hey, it's time to really be aggressive with this sell, I think it would make more sense to move him than it would to move Gore, just because it just seems like Gore is like right there at the top of the pitching list as far as best pitchers in baseball. Ryan doesn't get that type of love, but he's pretty damn good as well. Either of those guys, I think, just changes the dynamic of the team. I think Ryan's probably more gettable. I'm not sure if either are moving.
Yeah, I liked the phrase you used there, in flux, because that kind of describes this whole grouping we have here in our pre-show notes. It was ace-ish. Question mark was kind of this tier of pitcher of Mackenzie Gore, Joe Ryan, and Dylan Cease. I think having an interim GM in Washington really makes me doubt the Nationals would actually go through with that. The Twins are up for sale. They're kind of a hard team to read. Like, they're from, their president there, Derek Falvey's from like that Cleveland tree of sort of just, opportunistic, like not really, fully in or fully out, going to try and extract absolute, maximum value. And then, if Dylan Cease didn't play for a team run by AJ Preller, like, I don't think we'd hear his name out there like that. I just don't get that. I know AJ Preller is working 24/7, and he's got, the huge whiteboard, I'm sure, and is constantly watching videos, sending text messages. But like, I realize Dylan Cease is a free agent at the end of the year. I realize the Padres have had some ownership questions as well, some various payroll concerns, but I just don't. If you're trying to make the playoffs this year, I'd have a hard time seeing the scenario in which you subtract Dylan Cease and get a lot better, particularly because he is a rental. Like, what are you going to get for that? That's kind of where I'm at with that group. Not only don't see them coming to Chicago, don't see them getting traded, period.
Yeah. A team that is going to be trading players, Pittsburgh Pirates, they have a trio of names that are interesting, and I think one starter is more interesting than the other. Mitch Keller, always been tantalizing talent, really good pitcher, also under control. Andrew Heaney doesn't move the needle for me. I get it. They need pitching, so if he's available and that's what you can get, but of the pitchers that we've named that are playing decently well, like, he's probably lower on the list for me. I get it. you need pitching to go after him. But is he that much better than Colin Ray? Right now, you need someone that just fills a spot because of Tyone's injury. But Mitch Keller is interesting because I think he's solid, but also the type of guy you get him into the Cubs system, maybe he takes it another level. David Bednar has always been on the radar. I feel like when he broke out that year, he broke out, and it seemed like he saved his best for the Cubs. There was a stretch there where when he came in, it was like, okay, the game's over. I think he's a little older, and the stuff is in quote unquote decline, but he's still a great reliever. And if he's not your obvious closer, he is a co-closer probably with Palencia if you can pry him away.
Yeah, I feel like Keller is kind of illustrative of just this market at large. Of he was an all-star not that long ago. He's having a good season on a bad team, but the Pirates are under pressure here. This front office has been on the hot seat for a long time. They're going to try and just wring every last bit of prospect value out of this deal. And you have to take on a significant amount of contract in terms of years and dollars. And like, if you're the Cubs, is that overall cost going to be worth it for a guy who, probably isn't jumping the line in front of Schroeder or Boyd to start a playoff game? You're going to be getting Tyone back as a nice piece. I think maybe you aim a little higher or think a little shorter term here. Like we always say the Cubs should spend more money. We're not worried about that, but as a baseball operation, if you're trying to maneuver this here, if you're not going to be spending like the Dodgers, is Mitch Keller the guy you want to build around at this moment? Because once you do that, you're taking away from the future in a way that's not as obvious as just trading a prospect. And when you combine them both, it's a lot. Maybe that one comes down closer to the deadline and it starts to make more sense, but that was kind of our read at this moment.
All right, Patrick, let's take another break and get back to some other names to keep an eye on.
Nothing says summer like long days, clutch plays, and firing off a few bets on the game, all with DraftKings Sportsbook. Never bet on baseball before? It's easy. Pick a guy to go yard, hammer some live odds mid-game, or just ride your squad and hope for the best. No spreadsheets, just vibes and dingers. Here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code FOUL. That's code FOUL for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
A team that probably wasn't expected to be among the sellers at the start of the season, but very clearly sellers now. The Baltimore Orioles, I believe they've already made at least one move, and they're likely to make more. Charlie Morton is someone that has had a lot of experience, a lot of postseason experience. He's pitched in big games. He's pitched really well in big games. That can't be overlooked. He's got a 5.58 ERA. That's not good. That's really bad. But over his last 9-ish starts, I believe he may have even been moved out of the rotation. I may be wrong on that, but
yeah, I believe it was late April they moved him out, and then not long after they fire Brandon Hyde, Morton works his way back. But I believe the first start out of the All-Star break was just bad.
Yeah. The first start out of the All-Star break was really bad for him. other than that, he's like I'd say for a few, like outside of that awful April, he's been pretty good. I mean, since like even counting the bullpen, like he has like a under 4 ERA since the very end of April. Not dominant, not bad, like the type of veteran presence that you could put in a rotation that desperately needs a starter. He's pitching better. And it would be like, bet on the back of the baseball card, bet on the experience. He's not completely done. So is it the exciting move? I don't know about that, but it feels like one that when Jed Hoyer talks about trusting what a guy's done, that Charlie Morton could fit that mold.
Yeah, and we're also in this period here where every start is magnified. You're looking not just at the metrics, but just simply, is a guy walking off the mound like, shaking his arm or holding his shoulder. And Orioles starter Zach Eflin just came off the injured list, looked pretty good. It was a back injury that seemed to be more manageable than, say, a troubling arm issue. Guy's got some nice postseason experience. Just seems like one of those kind of Cubs infrastructure guys. And I believe he's rental, not gonna, kind of have to break the bank there. So definitely Orioles, a team on the radar here.
Yeah. I would look at. I mean, Zach Eflin looks like a pretty good pitcher to me. Like a nice addition. How about the White Sox, Patrick? Brad Keller, Chris Flexen, now Adrian Hauser.
Why not? I mean, Friday's starter
yeah.
versus Shota Imanaga. Like, let's see. That'll be a classic, showcase type of event for Mr. Hauser.
We got a guy with a 17.7% strikeout rate, but a 1.89 ERA. Solid ground ball rate. Like he's pitched for Craig Counsell before. Are you betting on him? Like that's a guy that may be the opposite of Charlie Morton. It's like, I'm not sure. Did we just see his best of the season as far as results? It's a risk. It is also a depth move. It would be like similar to just adding another Colin Ray to get you through a couple games, get you through the season. This is not someone you'd say he's starting in the playoffs, but you know what? Like we've said a lot, that they need arms, they need depth, they need pitchers, and if he continues to pitch well, if they're seeing something that they're like, hey, I don't care about the strikeout rate, this guy is getting weak contact, and in front of our defense, it'll continue. Maybe it's enough to keep it to add him and use him as a depth piece.
Yeah, and I think the White Sox are a team we don't expect the Cubs to make deals with. Like, let's be honest. There are teams like the Orioles or the Marlins that make sense, or there's a dialogue, or, in the case of the Diamondbacks, there's relationships. The Athletics kind of do their own thing. These are two names that are going to be out there. Just, there's no metric for this, but this does not seem very Cub-like. That would be kind of what I'm looking for here. I'm talking about Luis Severino and Mason Miller. Just don't think the Cubs are the type to go all in at this moment for a closer, given what it would take. And Severino, there's a lot of money left on that deal. I know he's been a lot better on the road than at home, but just does not seem like, okay, that's like our move is going to be like a disgruntled pitcher in Sacramento. Yeah. And a guy who's been really good at times in his career, but has not have that steady, long track record that maybe you'd be looking for if you're going to have to give up a lot of prospects and commit a lot of future dollars at this particular juncture of this Cubs build.
Yeah, no, I mean, Mason Miller would be a great ad. Absolutely. Is someone who probably hasn't had his best first half. first few months of the season, and maybe the value isn't as high as it was a year ago. So yes, great. It would be a great ad. Still going to be an astronomical price, would be my guess. And then Severino is, I agree, too much money, I think, to like bet on that right now. Like if you're just betting on a guy in an expiring contract, thinking he has a better second half or better final 2 months, sure, that's a lot of money on that deal for someone that doesn't miss bats anymore or miss bats at a high rate. There's a group of bullpen arms that are really interesting. There's a couple that are on expiring deals, and then some impact dudes that would be under control. Finnegan, we've talked about him. Kyle Finnegan, I think, kind of fits the Cubs system in a sense. He can play up in front of the Cubs defense. Raisel Iglesias is someone that I don't want to say, but fits that mold that we were talking about with Charlie Morton, right? Maybe he's not having his best season. Maybe the stuff's not exactly where it was. Do they see something that, okay, projecting forward for the final 2 months, we think he can be his best self? Those are 2 expiring deals I think would make sense, are gettable. Maybe not immediate insert them into Daniel Palencia's role. Though maybe Iglesias, because he's done that before, but he's not pitching at that level right now.
Yeah, I think we can kind of circle a division here, and that's kind of where we started. Of what is the AL Central going to do? We looked at the Royals starting pitching. There are 2 clubs in particular, the Twins and the Guardians, that have those back end relievers that are interesting. What do you got on them?
Yeah, I mean, Joan Duran is a stud. One of the best relievers in baseball. If he's available, you pay up the price and go get him. What is it? Like, he throws 102 and has a upper 90s like splitter or something like that. I don't know. The guy's a freak. It's so good.
Yeah.
And then Griffin Jacks, like that, he's kind of interesting in the sense that I don't think the ERA is great. He's got a above 4 ERA, but he strikes guys out like crazy, doesn't walk guys. I do wonder, like, is that something that if he's playing with the Cubs plays up? I don't know. I don't watch him enough to feel 100% comfortable in saying that, but certainly 2 names that I know are on the Cubs radar. Jax is someone that a lot of people in that front office like a lot. I just don't, can they prime away? Neither of those guys are on expiring deals. They're going to cost a lot.
Yeah, it was noticeable being in Minnesota before the All-Star break, and just how the Cubs kind of talked about the back end of their bullpen that are just kind of like, well, if the Twins get a lead and like kind of don't mess things up, like they've just got like an absolute shutdown, lockdown bullpen, and that's how they win their games. But if they don't get that early lead, if they don't catch the ball, like they're in trouble. They're not that good, but they have that October type of bullpen. Again, everything we said earlier about Joe Ryan generally applies to that group. And then I don't know, we are going back to Cleveland again. Emmanuel Clase. I don't know, Guardians, what they always sort of listen.
Yes,
but
exactly.
They're sort of hard to deal with, right?
Yeah, they're not going to give him away for nothing.
Yeah,
they're not giving him away for nothing. But they listen on everyone. That's their philosophy. It doesn't matter what's going on. They'll listen on anyone, and especially when they're not obviously in it. I don't know what their record is off the top of my head, but I think they're below 500 or hovering around 500. That's exactly when they'll listen on anyone. They'll go any direction. They will trade guys with a ton of years left, guys on expiring deals, whatever. If you can give them value, they'll do it. All right, Patrick, those are 22 names of pitchers that the Cubs are looking at everyone. We could have made that list 40 probably.
Yeah.
The Cubs are looking at pitching. There's plenty of names to consider over this next week. We got a week left. There will be moves. There will be moves made. The Cubs will add pitching for sure. I guess the only question is who it is, how big of an impact. I think this week has shown us how important it is to add some more pitching, both in the bullpen and in the rotation. Really solidify that. You have an opportunity to do something fun this season. I don't think they. I think they see it the same way. I think the front office, I think council, all those guys, I think they see it the same way, and we're gonna hear some things this week and see some stuff that hopefully the fans enjoy. All right, Patrick, thanks so much for listening, everyone. This is Northside Territory. We'll be back with one more episode to wrap up this week, and then it's 3 the White Sox and that huge series in Milwaukee right before the deadline. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Make sure to rate, review, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and subscribe to The Athletic, where Patrick and I are on top of all things Cubs. Thanks, everyone.